Hey everybody, this week's Torah portion is Parsha Vayikra, and it is also a very special Shabbat. It is the Shabbat which we call Parsha Zachar. We're going to read the special Torah portion recalling what the nation of Amalek did to us when we left Egypt and they went and attacked us and hurt the people specifically who were at the rear, the women, children, and older people. And we recall that once a year. Interestingly, if you're going to go to shul one Shabbat a year, this is really the best one to do it because this is the only time when we read from the Torah and it's a biblical commandment. Normally, reading from the Torah is rabbinical, but this Shabbat, it's going to be a biblical one because we're going to be recalling and celebrating the mitzvah of remembering what Amalek did to us. Now, we have a very important rule, and that rule is every single mitzvah in the Torah has relevance to every single Jew in every single time period. Meaning even a mitzvah that doesn't seem to apply these days, so for example, any mitzvah that is related to the temple, we have no temple so we can't fulfill it, but we have a principle that every mitzvah has eternal relevance to every single Jew. And what we have to ask ourselves is, what does the mitzvah of eradicating Amalek have to do with us these days? We don't know who Amalek is, nor do we have the entire Jewish nation settled on their land, so we can't fulfill this mitzvah. So what relevance is there to us with this mitzvah of remembering what Amalek did to us and eradicating it from our memory? And I want to tell you one little possible explanation for this, of what relevance it has to us these days, with one interesting medrash that we find regarding this episode. The medrash asks, why is it that this nation of Amalek decided to attack the Jewish people? The Jews had nothing to do with Amalek. They had just left Egypt. There was no reason for Amalek to attack. The Jews weren't headed in their direction or anything like that. Why did they do it? So the Medrash says they came up with the following reason. The nation of Amalek said, look at these dirty Jews. Here the Egyptians hosted them very nicely and kindly for 200 plus years. And what did they do to their hosts? The Jews went and had them killed through their god and then took all their money and possessions and left. If they do that to the Egyptians who hosted them, all the more so what they're going to do to the rest of the world. So we have a moral obligation to wipe these people out. In fact, this may be the most merciful thing anyone has ever done in history, because we're going to kill for the sake of humanity. Meaning their rationalization was, or their excuse for killing the Jewish people was, that they felt that this was the ultimate act of mercy, because if the Jews are not wiped out, and they did that to their hosts, all the more so what they're going to do to everybody else on planet Earth. They're going to wipe out the planet and try to kill everybody. So we have a moral obligation to kill them. Now, if we were making a list of top 10 worst excuses ever in history, I think that this would make it into the top 5. Forget about the top 10. This would easily make it into the top 5. What kind of ridiculous excuses is that the Amalekites are coming up with, that they're killing the Jews because they're trying to save humanity? If you don't like the Jewish people, just say it. We could take it. We've had many generations and many thousands of years of persecution. We get it. We understand everybody hates us. Why is it that the nation of Amalek had to come up with this ridiculous excuse to explain why they're killing the Jewish people? And my rabbi told me a very important point to remember whenever studying not only the Torah, but really ourselves. And he said that we are incapable of doing anything wrong and knowing it and admitting it. Because as a human being a creation of God, and being a piece of God, what that means is that a human being is so great that they can't look at the face of wrong and say, yeah, I'm going to do it and I don't care. We're too great for that. So what we have to do is come up with rationalizations and explanations to ourselves for why we do what we do when it's wrong, and explain why not only isn't it wrong, it's right. And that's really the message, or one of the messages, of remembering what Amalek did to us. We have to recall that it's important to identify when we come up with a reason for doing something, and there's a little voice that starts to bug us and say, maybe this isn't right. We have to ask ourselves, is it because really it isn't right and this is some rationalization we came up with just to do what's wrong because we don't want to admit that it's wrong? Possibly. And it's important to always check ourselves and see if the reason that we're doing what we're doing is because it's really the right thing to do, or because we made up some explanation for why doing the wrong thing is really right. On behalf of Makarave, Shabbat Shalom.